I moved to Oklahoma in 2011. I currently am the State Hazard Mitigation Officer for the Oklahoma Department of Emergency Management. And when I moved to Oklahoma, my exposure to natural hazards included winter storms, flooding, and some severe thunderstorms from living in the state of Nebraska. Since moving to Oklahoma in 2011, I have been through tornadoes, record drought, our hottest summer on record, a 5.6 magnitude earthquake, wildfires, historic flooding, and an ice storm. That's my 4-year history here. When it comes to tornadoes, before I moved to Oklahoma, I did not know what a safe room was. So putting that into perspective on how important the peer-to-peer networking that goes on through NHMA is, it says a lot on just these different types of conversations coming from different communities and states on how we can play an important role on giving each other ideas on how to reduce risks from all hazards. In Oklahoma, typical mitigation actions we might see identified in hazard mitigation plans for tornadoes, education and awareness, different construction techniques, evaluating buildings for the best area of refuge, retrofitting buildings, and then of course, safe rooms. I'll briefly touch on the first 4 items, and then we will talk about tornado safe rooms. Education and awareness is probably the most important piece. Going back to all of the programs that we do in Oklahoma, if the public isn't aware of their risk and isn't aware of what they can do about that risk, we won't be successful. Oklahoma has historically done a very good job of educating citizens through our media outlets and other avenues on the risks associated with all hazards, particularly tornado safe rooms. On any given day in Oklahoma, you will hear news media outlets offering different drawings for tornado safe rooms. You can win a tornado safe room on your weekend visit to the Oklahoma casinos. You can see billboards for different safe room manufacturers as you drive up and down our turnpikes and highways. People know safe rooms in Oklahoma. It's the automatic response, and I can't speak from my experiences on how that market was created, but it's evident by the number of safe rooms that are sold in the market that's been created here. Continuing with education and awareness, aside from safe rooms, we have to begin educating our homeowners on the benefits of construction practices, educating our school officials that they don't necessarily have to have the funds right now to construct a safe room if they'll look at maybe the best area of refuge. Educating the design professionals. I know that the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety representatives are here. They'll be speaking with the Tulsa Home Builders Association tomorrow evening, and promoting the construction and use of safe rooms, continuing that momentum. Different construction techniques that we see. Encouraging wind engineering measures and construction techniques may include the following. I won't go into those. There's tons of material out on the web, on different websites that go into these practices. In Oklahoma, the city of Moore recently adopted a higher building standard for tornado. Essentially, it's the first building code in the United States that is focused on tornado risk reduction and mitigation. It's intended to mitigate or to harden new construction residential homes to wind speeds of 135 miles per hour. Building evaluations, I would not be doing my job correctly if I did not mention our Safe Schools 101 program. That has been very important. It was created in 2013 in the aftermath of the May 2013 tornado events. Since 2013, we've evaluated over 100 school campuses in Oklahoma for the best area of refuge. This is the program that we intend for superintendents to participate in when perhaps they can't afford a safe room on their campus. We give them the best area that their kids can go to if they did nothing else. It's been very successful, and we've also had a lot of those schools come back and apply for grant funding for safe rooms, but the two are not related. So the meat of this presentation, and I've got 20 minutes to talk to you about safe rooms. We know that safe rooms save lives. It's evident. We know that in a tornado event, you have the best chance of surviving that tornado event if you are in a safe room or a shelter. There's two different types of safe rooms that we reference: community safe rooms and residential. Community safe rooms in this presentation, any shelter or safe room that can hold more than 16 people. When you hear us mention school safe rooms, that's what FEMA considers to be a community safe room. More than anything, we see residential safe rooms in Oklahoma. Since 1999, through the assistance of FEMA, the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program, and pre-disaster mitigation, we've spent over $40 million funding over 20,000 safe rooms in Oklahoma. Since 1999, for community safe rooms or school safe rooms, we've funded 91 safe rooms through use of FEMA funds, $39 million. We've made strides in both types of safe rooms, but it's important to note, with or without federal funding, we continue to move forward in installing both types of safe rooms in Oklahoma. We mentioned that Tulsa Public Schools has recently passed a bond issue to install safe rooms in schools. This is something that's going on statewide. When the school districts have the means to fund safe rooms or shelters on their own, they will do so. Residential safe rooms continue to be installed with or without the assistance from the federal government. I recently spoke to one of our local emergency managers who's participated in 3 phases of a FEMA individual safe room program through our office. He's also, in his jurisdiction, received funds from HUD and the American Red Cross, yet he said only 1/3 of the permitting that goes towards residential safe rooms in this metro area community is for safe rooms that are funded through grant programs. The other 2/3 is for those that are just installing on their own with or without assistance from a grant. Terminology. We were recently asked if we have shelter standards. We have shelter standards that have been evolving over the years. The ICC 500 2014 edition was adopted. This is the standard. With or without FEMA funding, this is what, if somebody wants to call it a shelter for the purpose of wind mitigation, this is the standard of construction. When we mention safe rooms, we're meaning anything that meets or exceeds the requirements of the FEMA publication 320 for residential safe rooms or 361 for community safe rooms. The difference between the two, the FEMA guidelines go more into the human factor criteria. In terms of structural integrity, they actually reference back to the ICC 500. A little bit of a history here. The first statewide safe room program was developed after the '99 tornadoes. Since then, we've had several iterations. Most recently, Sooner Safe was developed in 2011. The first phase was in disaster 1917, and for reference, we're now into disaster 4222. We have had 16 phases of the Sooner Safe program, and we've noticed other entities beginning to fund safe room programs at the local level. The American Red Cross, Salvation Army, and HUD all came into play after the May 2013 tornado events. Initial Oklahoma Safe Room Initiative objectives, and these really reign true today when we look at our program. The public perception of tornado safe rooms. Homeowners understanding the need for safe rooms. Financial assistance, making safe rooms affordable. The fact that we've created this market does this on its own, but the fact that we have other funding mechanisms and also, like Ed mentioned earlier, lenders that will fund safe rooms for people to get 0% interest loans has only added to the ability for local homeowners to purchase and install safe rooms. And finally, quality control. We mentioned the standards and we mentioned the guidelines. It's still important today, as it was when the first safe room programs were developed, to make sure that the design professionals that are installing these safe rooms and manufacturing these safe rooms understand what design criteria they are constructing them to. We went over some financial assistance, and I gave these statistics on this slide earlier, funding over 20,000 safe rooms in Oklahoma since May 3rd, 99. We continue to fund these programs in Oklahoma. They're probably our most popular when it comes to the use of hazard mitigation grant program money. It's very easy, it's cost effective, and the more safe rooms that we have in our communities, the more success we're going to have in the aftermath of tornado events. It's evident when you look at the statistics from the loss of life in previous events from tornadoes today that we've made strides in this arena. Sooner Safe, we fund 75% of a safe room up to a maximum of $2,000. We fund 500 recipients annually. It's an electronic online program, and at any given time we have upwards of 40,000 citizens of Oklahoma registered to be drawn. Additional drawings are given as funding is available. They're completed at random, and some interesting things that we find is when we select the 500, when that drawing is completed, as we go through and notify those homeowners that they have been selected as a winner, almost 50% of them have already installed the safe room on their own and no longer want that rebate. Other programs, I mentioned that we do a lot of individual safe room programs at the local level. We'll continue to move forward with these. The locals will decide the max grant, and again, we can pay up to 75% of the safe room cost. Quality control, ensuring that the safe rooms are properly constructed and installed. For Sooner Safe and for our local individual safe room programs, we require that once the installation on those safe rooms is completed, that a certificate of installation is submitted to our office, signed off by the installer, saying that the safe room was installed and constructed to meet or exceed the FEMA criteria. When federal funds are not used, when a homeowner goes and installs a safe room on their own, it is up to the local jurisdiction to ensure that that safe room is installed properly based on whatever requirements they have in place. This takes us back to public education. Not all safe rooms and shelters are created equal. We see mom and pop shops. I live in Bristow, Oklahoma, and in the middle of Main Street, there's a parking lot that somebody has 3 different shelters that you can call the number and purchase these shelters, and they'll come and install them. They don't have a company name, it's just somebody in Bristow that's manufacturing them. I'm sure that that's fine. I'm sure that that's appropriate, but making sure that somebody, the consumer, is able to call that mom and pop shop and ask the questions that tell them that that is an actual shelter that meets the criteria is an important part of the public education process. An example of what's going on in Oklahoma, these are just some stats from Oklahoma City, the metro area, showing their permitting. I pulled this specifically because Oklahoma City has currently gone through one grant through our office for individual safe rooms for 500, but you see that they have over, in 2014, 8,000 storm shelter permits. So again, it shows that we continue to see more and more people installing these with or without that financial assistance. Required documents, I include this. This is how Oklahoma City does their quality control. They require a building permit application, documentation that the safe room meets or exceeds either the FEMA 320 or ICC 500, a letter regarding flotation showing the buoyancy factor has been considered, a floor plan showing where the safe room is going to be installed, and a site plan for outdoor shelters. Supply and demand. The cost of a safe room in Oklahoma is much less. This adds to our success. In the state of Nebraska, it's last summer they had an EF4 tornado go through a small town, and it took out homes that were in the floodplain. Those homeowners previously had basements, but they were now informed that they had to elevate. So the question was, what do we do about sheltering? In Nebraska, it's typical. You say, I'm going to my basement. Everybody has basements. So when you've had that security for so many years and you're told, well, you have to install an above ground safe room, and oh wait, it's going to cost you upwards of $8,000 to $10,000 because nobody installs them here. It's a little bit different of a setting than it is in states like Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas that have been installing these safe rooms for years. There's numerous manufacturers and installation companies in Oklahoma. I get phone calls all the time from potential manufacturers that say they're trying to come in and do business in Oklahoma and asking if they have a list that they need to get on. Purchasing a safe room in Oklahoma is very easy, and homeowners, again, re-emphasizing, they will purchase a safe room with or without funding assistance from the federal government. Some observations. Without fail, interest in safe rooms increases after the first tornado watch of storm season is issued. As soon as a tornado watch is issued, we're getting phone calls in our office asking about the Sooner Safe program. The number of registrations also increases. We have a policy in our office that our Sooner Safe staff is in the office available 8 to 5 to answer questions. That call volume increases dramatically after a tornado event. They tend to use their own demographic information or their own situation in an attempt to increase their chance at a safe room as well. And finally, about 50% of the Sooner Safe callers will install a safe room without assistance. The other 50 will continue to call our office and ask if they've been selected as a winner. In conclusion, let's see, 11:53, see, I'm right on the money. We're gonna get a break. Safe room construction will continue in Oklahoma. We will continue to see an increase in safe room construction post-tornado events. And Oklahomans certainly have a heightened awareness of tornado risk and their impact. They understand they are at risk to being impacted by a tornado. They understand they're vulnerable, and they certainly understand what they need to do to reduce that risk for themselves and their families.
Great job, Annie.
Thank you.
Congratulations to you and Albert and the state for all the things you've done on safe rooms. It's a remarkable story. I want to add a conclusion to your three, and the fourth one is, in the future, unless we do something different, people who can afford a safe room will increasingly be able to get one. People who can't afford them will be harmed disproportionately in the next storm. If you look at Tulsa, I'm going to lay you odds that if you put a map out of the incomes and a map out of the safe rooms and put them on top of each other, what you'd see is I think, pretty shocking. The more I think about it as my life goes on, the more I worry about it. I don't expect you to have a solution right now, Annie. I think if we continue to bring in groups like you've been doing with the Red Cross and the Salvation Army, you know, that's great. And that works after a disaster. But if you have any suggestions or if you have any ideas now, I'd love to hear them on how we can increase tornado safety for people who can't afford a safe room.
I will say that HUD, their programs are focused on those that have a certain income level. Also, we have one jurisdiction that opted to, instead of, typically our programs are reimbursement, so they go purchase the safe room and then they're reimbursed. We had one jurisdiction, one of our metro areas, opted to go ahead and reimburse, so the city foot the bill for the safe room up front for those entities so that they could go ahead and afford that, and then we would reimburse the city. And so then it was up to that homeowner to reimburse the metro as well. So, yes.
If I may, I don't want to do the whole legal lecture, but America's lawyers are always willing to help and to help make things safer. And they do that through litigation. And basically what you are doing in Oklahoma and Arkansas, and Texas, is raising a standard of care. When you think of how far we have come with respect to safe rooms as a result of the folks, many of them here, all over this state, we will go further on this. And eventually it will become abnormal and below a standard of care to have a home without a weather radio. It will be so odd that it might very well lead to litigation when people are injured. And you've got to keep that in mind. We have people out there, trial lawyers, looking to help people in their time of need in a very, very aggressive fashion, looking for someone to sue when someone is harmed. And my prediction is that we will increasingly be looking at litigation and developing a standard of care for all aspects of natural hazards. And I'm sorry, I mean, I'm not looking to sue anybody, but eventually we have to recognize that there will be an impetus for people to spend that extra money on construction because they're going to be worried about getting sued. And that's just so. And if that's what it takes to do hazard mitigation, well, gosh, you know, what can I tell you? And whether that's elevation, whether that's municipal carefully thinking ahead about stormwater detention and retention, somebody's going to be making decisions about how we're going to live.